From a wrestler who was more popular as a villain than a hero, to a champion who was outselling John Cena on merchandise but couldn't stay out of his own way, we're about to explore the 7 levels of WWE good guys. You'll discover why being chosen by management can actually hurt your career, how a 5'6" wrestler became more beloved than giants, and which legend's greatest career moment was literally betraying everything he stood for. Some of these stories will completely change how you view WWE's booking decisions, especially when you learn about the hero who broke every single rule of being a good guy, yet became the most popular wrestler ever. Let's start with the most shocking example of corporate backing gone wrong. Level 1. Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns became one of WWE's most polarizing, heavily pushed babyfaces when the company handed him everything they could offer: multiple world championships, main event spots at every major pay-per-view, and the full marketing machine behind him. Yet somehow, he faced something that no amount of corporate support could fix: fan rejection on a massive scale. The plan seemed foolproof when The Shield broke up in 2014. WWE needed their next John Cena, and Roman had all the right pieces. He looked like a superstar with his long black hair and muscular frame. He had family connections to The Rock through the Anoa'i wrestling dynasty. Most importantly, Vince McMahon saw something special in him. WWE bet their entire future on this one man, believing they could manufacture the next franchise player through sheer force of will. What happened next shows why wrestling fans can't be controlled like other audiences. Roman's 2015 Royal Rumble win drew intense boos in Philadelphia, turning what was supposed to be his crowning moment into a hostile rejection. The crowd's anger wasn't just disappointment. It was genuine hostility toward WWE's obvious attempt to force-feed them their chosen star. For 6 straight years, WWE kept pushing Roman as their top babyface, while fans consistently rejected him. Every Monday Night Raw became an exercise in awkwardness, as production choices sometimes tried to minimize the reaction on broadcast. Camera angles were adjusted to hide signs mocking Roman. The disconnect between what WWE wanted and what fans felt created one of the most uncomfortable atmospheres in wrestling history. The numbers told a completely different story than the live reactions. Roman remained a top merchandise seller and multi-time world champion during his controversial run. Kids loved his Superman punch and spear finishers. Corporate sponsors were happy with his clean-cut image and reliable work ethic. WWE's metrics showed success, but their live audiences were telling them something else entirely. Every Roman Reigns match became predictable, not because of his wrestling moves, but because of the crowd's response. Crowds started, "Let's go Roman, Roman sucks," dueling chants as soon as his music hit, turning every appearance into a distraction from the actual wrestling. WWE had multiple opportunities to change course. Daniel Bryan's popularity in 2014 showed exactly what organic fan support looked like. CM Punk's pipe bomb promo demonstrated how authentic reactions could create genuine stars. Yet WWE remained stubborn, convinced they could overcome fan resistance through repetition and consistent booking. They refused to turn Roman heel, despite overwhelming evidence that fans wanted anyone else as their hero. The corporate backing that should have helped Roman actually hurt him. Fans could sense that his push was artificial rather than earned. They resented being told who to cheer for instead of choosing their own favorites. Roman became a symbol of everything wrong with WWE's top-down approach to creating stars. His success on paper made the fan rejection even more frustrating for everyone involved. Everything changed in August 2020 when Roman finally turned heel and became the tribal chief. The widely acclaimed heel turn allowed WWE and fans to finally sync with his character, giving fans permission to boo him legitimately while showcasing his natural charisma as a villain. For the first time in his main event career, Roman felt genuinely compelling because he was working with the audience instead of against them. Sometimes the biggest favor management can do for a wrestler is to not choose them at all. But what happens when management overlooks someone who actually deserves their support? Level 2. Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio spent over 20 years as WWE's most universally loved babyface. Yet WWE repeatedly used him as a top underdog and mid to upper card attraction, but rarely engineered him as the company's long-term centerpiece. Every crowd cheered for him. Kids bought his masks, adults respected his work, wrestling legends praised his talent. But WWE executives looked at this fan favorite and saw a great supporting player instead of a franchise ace. Rey's 5'6" frame turned every single match into an instant underdog story that no scriptwriter could manufacture. When he stepped into the ring with guys like The Undertaker, Batista, or The Big Show. The visual told the story before anyone threw a punch. This natural David versus Goliath dynamic created sympathy that WWE couldn't buy with all their marketing budgets combined. Rey winning the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania 22 was a feel-good apex. Yet WWE rarely treated him like a long-term franchise ace. The victory capped off an emotional storyline where Rey dedicated his title chase to his late friend Eddie Guerrero. Fans were crying in the audience as Rey held up the championship belt. The moment felt genuine and earned. Yet WWE treated this championship reign like a special attraction rather than the beginning of a new era. They positioned Rey as someone who could hold the title temporarily, but never as the long-term face of the company. WWE's perception of Rey created an invisible ceiling that his talent couldn't break through. His high-flying moves drew gasps from crowds. His storytelling ability made even simple matches compelling. His work ethic was legendary among his peers. But WWE executives kept seeing his height instead of his skills. They worried that a 5'6" champion wouldn't look credible next to larger wrestlers, even though Rey consistently proved he could make any match feel important through his performance alone. The disconnect between fan reactions and corporate vision became obvious when crowds cheered louder for Rey than for wrestlers. WWE was actively pushing as main eventers. Fans connected with his authentic struggle to succeed despite physical limitations. They saw themselves in his battles against bigger opponents. WWE executives saw market research about action figures and worried about how a smaller wrestler would photograph next to other company representatives at corporate events. Rey's career longevity exposed something interesting about wrestling stardom. His WWE career spans decades from 2002 to 2015 and 2018 to present, winning both the World Heavyweight Championship and WWE Championship during that time. While main event wrestlers often burn out after a few years of heavy pushing, Rey maintained his fan connection across multiple decades. Kids who cheered for him in 2002 brought their own children to shows in 2020. His consistent character work and reliable performances earned him respect that many world champions never achieved. He became a multi-generational star without ever being overexposed as the top guy. The lucha libre style that Rey brought to WWE created a completely unique babyface template. His aerial moves looked impossible. His colorful masks gave him instant visual appeal. His family man persona outside the ring made him relatable to parents. No other wrestler could replicate what Rey offered because his combination of skills, heritage, and presentation was genuinely one of a kind. WWE had stumbled onto something special, but never fully understood how to maximize it. Management's decision to keep Rey in a supporting role might have accidentally preserved his legacy. He never had to carry the company through bad storylines or disappointing pay-per-views. Fans never got tired of seeing him because he wasn't forced down their throats every single week. His appearances felt special rather than routine. The artificial ceiling that limited his championship opportunities also protected him from the overexposure that hurt other wrestlers. But what happens when a wrestler has everything Rey lacked, the look, the push, and the fan support, yet becomes their own worst enemy? Level 3. Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy reached the top in 2008 when he won the WWE Championship. Yet reports at the time suggested his merchandise sales were rivaling John Cena's among certain demographics. Kids wore his arm sleeves. Adults bought his t-shirts. His merchandise moved faster than almost anyone else on the roster. Yet Jeff became his own worst enemy during the exact moment when everything was finally coming together for him. Jeff's journey from high-flying Hardy Boys tag specialist to WWE's hottest singles babyface took years of gradual evolution. The Hardy Boys had already proven their daredevil style could captivate audiences through ladder matches and TLC encounters, but Jeff's solo career required him to connect with fans on a more personal level than just spectacular bumps. His colorful face paint and unique entrance music created an artistic character that felt different from typical WWE presentations. Fans responded to his creative expression and willingness to put his body on the line for their entertainment. The 2008 WWE Championship victory against Triple H and Edge at Armageddon represented everything Jeff had worked toward throughout his career. The championship win felt like a reward for years of punishment his body had absorbed. Fans celebrated because they watched Jeff climb from tag team specialist to world champion through pure determination. The victory seemed to prove that creative wrestlers could reach the top of WWE without conforming to corporate templates. Yet off-screen issues were already building behind the scenes during this career-defining moment. His daredevil ring style and unpredictable life choices created a shockingly fragile peak. The same reckless abandon that made his matches exciting also drove his personal choices outside the ring. The line between Jeff Hardy the performer and Jeff Hardy the person became dangerously blurred in ways that WWE management found increasingly difficult to manage. Off-screen issues and suspensions started derailing Jeff's momentum precisely when he reached the upper levels of WWE's hierarchy. Multiple suspensions interrupted championship pushes and storyline developments. WWE had to rewrite storylines around his absences. Other wrestlers had to adjust their own career plans because Jeff couldn't maintain his responsibilities. The timing of these problems made them particularly devastating because they occurred during his peak popularity with audiences. Each comeback attempt followed the same disappointing pattern. Jeff would return with renewed focus and immediately reconnect with fans who still supported him. His matches would remind everyone why he became popular in the first place. WWE would begin building storylines around his return. Then problems would surface again, forcing WWE to remove him from television and start the cycle over again. Fans experienced hope and disappointment repeatedly as they watched their favorite wrestler sabotage his own success. Jeff's authentic struggle made him more relatable to certain fans who faced similar battles in their own lives. His vulnerability felt genuine compared to other wrestlers who maintained perfect public personas. Fans could see themselves in his struggles and wanted him to succeed. However, this same authenticity made him completely unreliable from WWE's business perspective. They couldn't build major storylines around someone whose personal problems might force sudden changes to their programming. The realization that Jeff's greatest opponent wasn't any wrestler on the roster became obvious over time. Triple H, Edge, and CM Punk could be defeated through scripted victories. Personal demons required different kinds of battles that couldn't be won through predetermined outcomes. Jeff's peak proved how even raw fan love and commercial momentum can vanish if the performer can't stay present for the booking. His biggest rivals became his own personal demons, proving that natural talent and overwhelming fan support mean absolutely nothing without the self-control to capitalize on opportunities when they appear. But sometimes a wrestling legend's most memorable moment comes from doing the exact opposite of what made them famous in the first place. Level 4. Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan represents wrestling's most fascinating paradox. Ironically, many fans and historians point to his NWO heel turn as the moment that redefined his legacy, overshadowing nearly a decade of heroic accomplishments. The man who spent 8 years telling kids to train hard, say their prayers, and eat their vitamins became most famous for turning his back on all of it. His most celebrated achievement wasn't any championship victory or heroic comeback. It was becoming the villain. Hogan was WWE's crossover megastar in the 80s. Hulkamania launched WrestleMania into a global phenomenon. His match against Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3 in 1987 drew 93,000 fans to the Pontiac Silverdome and became the template for every major wrestling event that followed. WWE transformed from a regional territory into a worldwide entertainment company largely because Hogan's appeal crossed over into mainstream culture. The shocking reality is that wrestling historians and fans consistently rank his heel turn as the defining moment of his entire career. Critics who dismissed his wrestling ability and repetitive character work suddenly praised his reinvention as Hollywood Hogan. The same people who were bored by his predictable good guy routine became fascinated by his villainous transformation. His NWO membership generated more discussion and analysis than any of his championship reigns as a hero. Hulkamania defined what an entire generation thought a wrestling hero should look like and act like. The training, prayers, and vitamins message became the standard template for babyface wrestlers throughout the 1980s. Kids across America repeated his catchphrases and copied his poses. Parents approved of his clean-cut image and positive messaging. Hogan became the measuring stick for every good guy wrestler who followed him. His influence shaped how WWE presented heroes for decades after his initial run ended. The problem was that his good guy persona became so predictable that audiences started craving something different by the mid-1990s. Fans could predict his matches before they started. His promos followed the same patterns every single time. His character had no room for growth or evolution because changing anything would risk damaging the Hulkamania brand. Wrestling audiences were becoming more sophisticated and wanted characters with more depth than the simple good versus evil stories that Hogan represented. What happened at Bash at the Beach in July 1996 changed everything about how the wrestling industry operated. The heel turn resonated because it offered freshness and unpredictability during an era when pop culture was embracing edgier characters. The crowd's reaction was genuine anger and disbelief, rather than typical wrestling heat. Fans threw trash into the ring because they felt personally betrayed by someone they had supported for over a decade. The moment proved that surprising your audience could generate more interest than giving them what they expected. Hollywood Hogan displayed more natural charisma and personality as a villain than he ever showed as a hero. His arrogant swagger felt more authentic than his forced enthusiasm. His promos became more compelling because he could express genuine emotion instead of recycling the same positive messages. The black and white NWO colors looked better on him than the red and yellow ever did. He seemed more comfortable being bad than he ever was being good. The most ironic part of Hogan's legacy is that his heroic years are now remembered primarily as setup for his villainous transformation. Wrestling fans discuss his heel turn more than his WrestleMania victory. NWO era merch exploded in popularity and shifted the conversation around Hogan's legacy. His bad guy run lasted only a few years compared to his decade as a hero, yet it receives more attention in wrestling documentaries and retrospectives. This proves that a wrestler's legacy gets defined by their most surprising moments, rather than their most successful periods. But what happens when a wrestler builds their entire reputation on never surprising anyone at all? Level 5. Sting. Sting spent over 2 decades as WCW's franchise player before his WWE debut at Survivor Series. 2014 generated massive crowd reactions despite never wrestling a single match in a WWE ring before that moment. Fans who had waited over a decade to see him in WWE exploded with excitement when his music hit. The pop was so loud that it felt like a longtime WWE legend was returning, rather than someone making their company debut. This reaction demonstrated 30 years of accumulated goodwill that no corporate rivalry could diminish. Sting's career evolution from surfer-inspired character in the 1980s to the mysterious Crow persona of the late 1990s shows how a wrestler can completely reinvent their look while maintaining their core heroic identity. The early Sting wore bright colors and acted like a typical all-American hero. His transformation into the dark, brooding Crow character preserved his babyface status by positioning him as a mysterious force for good rather than evil. This evolution proved that babyfaces don't have to stay static to remain effective. What makes Sting's career remarkable is how his WCW franchise player status never prevented WWE fans from embracing him when he finally arrived. Most wrestlers who spend their prime years with competing companies face skepticism from new audiences. Sting faced the opposite reaction because his reputation for consistency and authenticity preceded him across company lines. WWE fans respected what he represented, even though they had only watched him from a distance during the Monday Night Wars. His face paint became his trademark, a simple visual hook that lasted decades. Whether he was wearing the colorful designs of his surfer days or the black and white patterns of his Crow era, the face paint provided instant visual recognition across different generations of fans. Kids who started watching wrestling in the 2000s could immediately identify Sting, even though his peak popularity occurred in the 1990s. The paint transcended specific storylines or character changes. Sting survived WCW's collapse, TNA's financial struggles, and years of speculation about potential WWE appearances without ever compromising his heroic character or turning heel for easy storyline purposes. Other wrestlers might have switched between good guy and bad guy roles to create new interest in their characters. Sting remained committed to being a hero throughout multiple decades of changing wrestling trends. This consistency became his defining characteristic as the industry evolved around him. His Crow persona during the late 1990s demonstrated that heroes could be dark and mysterious without becoming villains. The character was inspired by the movie The Crow and featured Sting lurking in the rafters, rarely speaking, and maintaining an air of mystery that made him more compelling than typical cheerful babyfaces. He proved that you could brood, wear dark clothing, and act mysteriously while still representing the forces of good against evil. Sting's refusal to join the NWO during WCW's hottest storyline period showed incredible character strength when every other major star was either joining the group or being recruited by them. He stood alone against the invasion storyline that dominated wrestling for months. His resistance made him look stronger and more principled than wrestlers who switched sides for storyline convenience. However, his WWE run didn't reach the heights many expected. His WrestleMania 31 loss to Triple H disappointed fans who wanted to see the WCW icon get a signature victory. Later, a concussion suffered during his match with Seth Rollins effectively ended his active wrestling career, limiting any momentum he might have built in WWE. Sting's career represents decades of goodwill and consistent character work that created pure babyface capital even outside WWE's creative control. His commitment to heroism throughout multiple wrestling eras created unshakable fan loyalty that survived company changes, character evolution, and years away from major wrestling promotions. But building that kind of credibility required something that was becoming increasingly rare in wrestling. Level 6. Bret Hart. Bret Hart's crowning moment came at Survivor Series 1992 when he defeated Shawn Michaels for the Intercontinental Championship, establishing him as a top-tier performer who proved that pure wrestling skill could earn deeply loyal adoration during an era when WWE was moving toward larger-than-life personalities. Bret's technical focus ran counter to the increasingly entertainment-driven booking of the 1990s, proving craft still mattered. While other wrestlers were developing over-the-top gimmicks and relying on spectacular storylines, Bret connected with fans through technical mastery and old-school craftsmanship. Bret's climb from Hart Foundation Tag Champion to multiple-time WWE Champion during the New Generation era required him to prove that technical wrestlers could carry the company as effectively as entertainers. His tag team success with Jim Neidhart established his credibility, but transitioning to singles competition meant competing against wrestlers who had more obvious charisma and flashier presentations. WWE was actively searching for their next Hulk Hogan, someone who could appeal to mainstream audiences beyond traditional wrestling fans. Bret had to convince management that wrestling skill could substitute for theatrical personality. The challenge facing Bret was that his technical mastery had to compete with larger-than-life personalities like The Undertaker's supernatural character or Shawn Michaels' flamboyant showmanship for fan attention. WWE was creating characters that seemed designed for action figures and Saturday morning cartoons. Bret's presentation was comparatively straightforward. He was simply an excellent wrestler who took pride in his craft. This meant his matches had to be significantly better than everyone else's to generate equivalent crowd reactions and merchandise sales. Bret made the sharpshooter feel like the match's inevitable, dramatic ending through methodical storytelling. Most submission holds were treated as rest periods during matches, but Bret made the sharpshooter feel like a climactic moment every time he applied it. He would work on his opponent's legs throughout the match, building toward the submission logically. When he finally locked it in, fans understood they were watching the culmination of a carefully constructed strategy rather than just another finishing move. His catchphrase that he was the best there is, was, and ever will be, became more than promotional language. It was a credential backed by consistent in-ring evidence that fans could see every night he wrestled. Other wrestlers made similar claims about their abilities, but Bret's matches supported his statements. He rarely had bad matches regardless of his opponent's skill level. His consistency made his boasting feel like honest assessment rather than empty bragging. Bret's self-presentation as a craftsman rather than a character created a unique type of babyface credibility that separated him from other heroic wrestlers of his era. He talked about wrestling like it was an art form that required years of study and practice to master. His promos focused on his dedication to improvement and respect for wrestling tradition. This approach made him seem more authentic than wrestlers who relied on catchphrases or manufactured personalities to connect with audiences. Canadian fans' loyalty to him demonstrated that technical excellence could create regional hero worship that transcended typical wrestling storylines. His pro-Canadian turn later in his career created mixed reactions in the United States while maintaining his heroic status in Canada, showing how geography could complicate traditional babyface dynamics. The relationship showed how genuine skill could create cultural identification that promoters could build storylines around. His wrestling-first approach influenced an entire generation of performers who watched his matches and learned that technical skill could sustain long-term success in an entertainment-focused industry. Wrestlers like Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and Kurt Angle followed similar paths, proving that Bret's template remained viable even as WWE continued evolving toward entertainment. Bret's career is proof that in-ring credibility can create sustained fan loyalty even when crowd tastes shift. But the wrestling industry was about to demand something entirely different from its heroes, a transformation that would challenge everything traditional babyfaces represented. Level 7. John Cena. John Cena went from rapper to 16-time world champion to polarizing figure to widely respected icon, proving that modern heroes need to succeed in multiple arenas beyond just wrestling. His journey shows how a wrestler can become both the most loved and most hated performer simultaneously, creating a legacy that transcends typical fan reactions. Cena carried WWE through the PG era, from 2005 to 2018, while simultaneously dividing audiences like no babyface before him. WWE needed a clean-cut hero who could appeal to families and corporate sponsors after the edgy attitude era ended. Cena transformed from his Doctor of Thugonomics rapper character into the colorful hero who preached hustle, loyalty, and respect. His bright clothing and positive messaging made him perfect for WWE's family-friendly direction. Yet this same transformation created the most polarizing fan-base reactions in wrestling history. His merchandise sales dominated WWE's revenue streams throughout his peak years, while the "Let's Go Cena, Cena Sucks" chants became the soundtrack to an entire wrestling generation. Kids wore his colorful t-shirts and wristbands to every show, while adult fans booed him, creating a split crowd dynamic that defined WWE programming for over a decade. His "Never Give Up" slogan became as recognizable as any WWE catchphrase in history, despite the mixed crowd reactions he received every single night. What gradually shifted public perception was Cena's charitable work. Cena granted 650+ Make-A-Wish requests, a record for a celebrity. These weren't publicity stunts or corporate obligations. Cena genuinely connected with sick children and their families during some of their most difficult moments. The wrestling character that adults rejected became secondary to the real person who was making a difference in children's lives. His charitable work transformed him from a polarizing wrestling figure into a legitimate real-life hero. Cena's Hollywood career proved that modern babyfaces must transcend wrestling to achieve true icon status in today's entertainment landscape. His roles in Fast and Furious spin-offs and various comedy films showed he could succeed outside WWE's bubble. His cross-media appeal brought new audiences to wrestling while establishing his credibility as a mainstream entertainer. The transition from wrestler to actor demonstrated how modern heroes need multiple revenue streams and cultural touchpoints to remain relevant. His willingness to put over younger talent in his later career earned respect from critics who had previously dismissed him as a corporate creation who never helped other wrestlers. Cena's feuds with Kevin Owens, AJ Styles, and other rising stars showcased his ability to make other performers look credible through high-quality matches and clean losses. He stopped protecting his character and started using his position to elevate the next generation of wrestlers. But sometimes the most beloved heroes emerge by completely rejecting everything that traditional good guys represent. Bonus level: Stone Cold Steve Austin, the anti-hero who redefined heroism. Stone Cold Steve Austin's Austin 3:16 promo after winning the 1996 King of the Ring tournament launched the most mind-blowing contradiction in wrestling history. He cursed at fans, drank beer during matches, flipped off the audience, and physically attacked his own boss on live television. By every traditional wrestling standard, these actions should have made him the biggest villain in WWE history. Instead, they made him the most beloved hero the company had ever seen. Austin's transformation from the ringmaster to the beer-drinking, boss-stunning rebel created a completely new template for what a babyface could be in professional wrestling. The ringmaster character was everything WWE traditionally wanted in a hero: clean-cut, technically skilled, and respectful of authority. The character failed miserably because fans found him boring and generic. When Austin dropped the suit and tie for jeans and a black t-shirt, he discovered his authentic voice. The beer-drinking rebel connected with audiences in ways that the manufactured good guy never could. Austin tapped into the 90s anti-establishment mood, working-class frustration, and a desire to see bosses humiliate. Corporate downsizing was destroying middle-class jobs across America. Workers felt powerless against bosses who seemed to care only about profits. Austin became the fantasy of every employee who wanted to tell their boss exactly what they thought. When he stunned Vince McMahon, he was living out the dreams of millions of frustrated workers who felt trapped by authority figures. Austin shows that audience alignment, not rulebook virtue, is what makes a legendary babyface. His career proved that the best babyfaces often emerge organically rather than through corporate planning. These 7 levels reveal the paradox that wrestling heroism is actually a complex negotiation between performer, audience, and management, where the most successful babyfaces often succeed despite WWE's plans rather than because of them. 2 quick takeaways. Being chosen by WWE isn't the same as being chosen by fans, and authenticity plus timing beat manufactured pushes every time. Roman's corporate backing backfired while Rey's fan love couldn't guarantee main event treatment. Jeff's natural popularity crumbled under personal problems. True heroic status happens through timing, authenticity, and fan psychology working together in ways nobody can predict or control. Which level would your favorite babyface land on? Drop your picks in the comments below.